Picture this. A woman steps onto a crowded Monday morning train in Tokyo. She is not wearing an expensive designer dress. She is not wearing a brand name you would immediately recognize. She is wearing a simple gray linen shirt slightly worn at the collar, dark tapered trousers, and a single pair of dark shoes scuffed at the toe in exactly one place, as if by a life well lived. And yet every single person in that carriage notices her. Not because she is loud, not because she is trying hard, but because she has arrived at something the rest of the world has been spending enormous amounts of money attempting to buy. She looks complete, and you, watching her, feel something quiet and slightly painful. Because your own wardrobe, full, overflowing, expensive in its total, exhausting in its choices, somehow produces the exact opposite feeling every single morning. We sit there staring at our expense spreadsheets, crying because we bought too many clothes just to relieve our daily stress, yet we still wake up feeling like we have absolutely nothing to wear. There is a secret inside that gray linen shirt, a secret that has nothing to do with fashion trends and everything to do with how you manage your mind, your money, and your peace. Let me tell you about a night that might sound painfully familiar. Late last month, I was sitting in front of my laptop at 2 a.m. The house was finally quiet, but my mind was incredibly loud. I was staring at my family expense spreadsheet and my chest physically tightened. I realized I had spent nearly $300 on new clothes that month alone. I told myself I was just relieving stress. I was buying these things to heal from the pure exhaustion of daily life, the endless chores, and the mental load of parenting. I thought a new outfit would make me feel more put together, more in control. But the very next morning, reality hit. I still spent 15 chaotic minutes tearing through a closet stuffed with clothes, panicking because I could not find a single shirt that felt right. The frustration built up so much that when my 4-year-old accidentally spilled a glass of milk on the kitchen floor, I completely snapped. I yelled. It was not about the milk. It was never about the milk. It was the cognitive load. Clothes are supposed to make us feel confident, but mine were actively draining my energy, draining my bank account, and worst of all, stealing my patience and making me a reactive parent. If you have ever felt this exact type of exhaustion, please listen to me right now. It is not your fault. You are not lacking discipline or willpower. You are experiencing a crushing level of decision fatigue combined with a psychological phenomenon called enclothed cognition. Our brains only have a limited amount of bandwidth each day. When you open a closet packed with items you do not wear, items that do not fit your current body, items bought for a fantasy version of your life, your brain has to process every single one of those micro decisions. You are completely depleted before you even walk out the front door. We have been sold a massive lie by Western consumer culture that more choices mean more freedom and better style. The scientific truth is that more choices just mean more mental fatigue, higher cortisol levels, and an empty wallet. The Japanese approach this problem entirely differently. They do not rely on willpower to resist buying things, and they do not force themselves into rigid, miserable budgeting rules. Instead, they use a system, and it starts with a concept called Danshari. You have probably heard a million videos talk about decluttering, but Danshari is fundamentally deeper. It translates roughly to refuse, dispose, and separate. It is not a weekend cleaning project where you put things in trash bags and feel good for a day. It is a psychological shift from unconscious accumulation to intentional curation. In our Western culture, we are taught to hold on to things just in case. Or we ask ourselves vague, emotional questions like, does this spark joy? But here is the problem. When you are deeply exhausted and stressed out, A $200 sweater you never actually wear might spark a temporary hit of joy simply because it looks pretty on the hanger. Your tired brain craves that dopamine hit. Danshari cuts through that trap by asking a much more honest, grounded question. Does this item serve the life I am actually living right now? Not the fantasy life where I go to fancy dinners every weekend. Not the life I had 5 years ago before I had kids, but my actual, messy, real life today. By applying Danshari, you are refusing to let the noise of the outside world dictate what enters your safe space. You separate your self-worth from the physical items you own. You are not creating a minimal wardrobe just to take aesthetic pictures for the internet. You are creating an honest wardrobe. And this honesty is the very first step to stopping the financial bleeding and taking your mental bandwidth back. Once you have used Danshari to honestly separate what you actually need from what you do not, you will naturally encounter the second and perhaps most beautiful Japanese concept in this journey. It is called ma. Ma translates roughly to negative space, or the space between things. In Japanese art and architecture, ma is just as important as the physical objects themselves. It is the silence between the musical notes that gives a piece of music its deep emotion. It is the empty space in a room that gives the room its tranquil shape and allows the energy to flow. In Western consumer culture, we are deeply conditioned to view empty space as a problem that desperately needs to be filled. If there is an empty gap on our closet rack, we feel an immediate psychological urge to buy a new shirt to fill it. If there is an empty afternoon in our weekend schedule, we find a task to fill it. We constantly suffocate ourselves with accumulation, but the Japanese understand that ma is not empty at all. Ma is completely full of potential. Let me share with you how profoundly this one single concept changed my reality. It did not just change my closet, it changed my daily emotional baseline as a parent. Remember how I mentioned earlier that I found myself snapping at my 4-year-old over a simple spilled glass of milk? The real root cause of that reactive anger was the overwhelming clutter of my morning routine. I was spending 30 grueling minutes every single day fighting with a stuffed closet. I was pulling on the hangers, trying on 3 different outfits, feeling terrible in all of them, throwing clothes on the bed and rushing out the door feeling already defeated. My cortisol levels, which is your body's stress hormone, were already peaking before I even made it to the kitchen to pour a cup of coffee. I was operating on 0 patience because my environment had drained me, so I decided to rigorously apply ma. I removed everything from my wardrobe that did not serve my actual life today. Suddenly, for the first time in years, there was physical empty space between the hangers in my closet. The next morning, I opened the closet doors, and instead of a wall of stressful decisions pushing back at me, I saw space. I saw breathing room. It took me exactly 3 minutes to get dressed. I felt calm. I felt anchored. I felt like myself. And when my child accidentally spilled his drink on the floor that same week, my reaction was entirely different. I did not yell. I did not panic about the time. I had the mental bandwidth and the morning margin to just smile, grab a towel, and wipe it up together with him. That is the true power of ma. It is not about having fewer clothes just so you can call yourself a minimalist. It is about actively creating empty space so you have the room to actually breathe, to think clearly, and to be deeply patient with the people you love. If this reframing of how space can heal your mind is making sense to you, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel right now. We explore these quiet, life-changing shifts together every week, building a community of people who are choosing peace over pressure. You might be sitting there wondering why it is so incredibly difficult to maintain this peaceful space. Why do we keep buying things we know we do not need, even when we consciously know it causes us financial anxiety, ruined spreadsheets, and morning stress. To truly understand this trap, we have to look away from our closets for a moment and look at the exact science of what is happening inside your brain. It all comes down to a powerful psychological phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation. In the West, modern consumer culture has essentially weaponized our own biology against us. Here is exactly how the cycle works. When you buy a new piece of clothing, your brain releases a massive spike of dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure, reward, and motivation. It is a profound biological thrill. You swipe your credit card, the package arrives at your door, and you feel a temporary surge of happiness and a sudden boost in confidence. You think this new jacket will finally be the piece that makes you feel complete. But hedonic adaptation is a human survival mechanism that means we rapidly return to a baseline level of happiness, regardless of positive or negative events in our lives. Neurological studies show that within just 12 short weeks, and very often much sooner than that, the dopamine hit from that brand new sweater completely fades away. The magic wears off entirely. It stops being a source of joy and becomes just another piece of fabric taking up physical space in your closet and mental space in your brain. But your brain still deeply craves that dopamine release. So what happens next? You go back to the store. You open up the shopping app late at night when you are feeling tired or lonely. You buy something else. You are trapped on what psychologists call a hedonic treadmill. You are running endlessly, spending money you might not even have, cluttering your safe spaces, just trying to feel that fleeting sense of normal again. I need you to hear this very clearly because it is so important. We are not weak. We are not lacking discipline. We are not failing at life. We are simply operating within an economic system that actively profits from keeping us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The fast fashion industry desperately needs you to feel like you are never quite enough so that you will buy the next trend to fix the feeling. Understanding this biological trap is the most incredibly freeing realization you can have. Because the very second you see the treadmill for what it is, you can finally choose to step off it. You stop blaming yourself for the clutter, and you start systematically dismantling the habit without the guilt. This realization brings us to the final and perhaps most profound pieces of the Japanese capsule wardrobe philosophy. These are the concepts that heal the constant, exhausting urge to buy and help you find a deep, unshakable peace in what you already own. The first of these is Wabi Sabi. You may have heard this term applied to ancient pottery or interior design, but it is deeply transformative when applied to how we present ourselves to the world. Wabi Sabi is the beautiful celebration of the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. Western fashion marketing aggressively tells you that your clothes must be flawless, brand new, and perfectly on trend for you to have any social value. It demands a pristine image that is mathematically and financially impossible to maintain. Wabi Sabi whispers a truth that is entirely different. It tells you that the slight wear on the collar of your absolute favorite linen shirt, the fading on your best pair of jeans, the small scuff on the toe of your most comfortable leather shoes, these are not flaws to be hidden or immediately replaced. They are the beautiful, authentic marks of a life being genuinely lived. Wabi Sabi instantly relieves the agonizing pressure of perfectionism. It tells you that you are already enough, exactly as you are today. You do not need to buy a completely new identity every single season to matter. And very closely tied to the grace of Wabi Sabi is the profound concept of Chisoku. Chisoku translates to knowing when you have enough. It is the ultimate permanent antidote to the hedonic treadmill we just talked about. Chisoku is not about forcing yourself to live in strict poverty or painfully denying yourself nice things through pure willpower. It is a state of deep, quiet mindfulness where you suddenly realize that the honest, curated selection of items you already possess is completely sufficient for your comfort and your happiness. When you practice Chisoku, getting dressed in the morning is no longer an anxious, stressful attempt to become someone else or to impress people you do not even know. It becomes a quiet, grounding daily affirmation of who you already are. Think back to the woman we talked about at the very beginning, the woman on the Tokyo train. She completely embodied Chisoku. She was not looking around the carriage nervously to see if her outfit was more expensive or more trendy than anyone else. She was grounded completely in her own stable identity. Her wardrobe was not a protective costume. It was an honest reflection of her reality. And because she knew deep in her bones that she had enough, she radiated a sense of absolute completion that money literally cannot buy. That level of peace is available to you right now, hiding beneath the excess in your own home. So what does this all mean for you tonight when you stand in front of your own closet? We have traveled through a completely different way of looking at our physical spaces and our mental bandwidth today. Remember the woman on the Tokyo train we talked about at the very beginning of this journey? She did not find her incredible sense of peace and complete presence by buying a brand new wardrobe or following a complex fashion trend. She found it by deeply understanding what she no longer needed. She embodied the quiet power of Chisoku. And remember that painful 2 a.m. spreadsheet panic I shared with you. Remember that incredibly stressful morning where a simple spilled glass of milk felt like the absolute end of the world because my brain was already exhausted from choosing an outfit. That does not have to be your reality tomorrow. Your exhaustion is not a personal failure. You have just been playing a game designed by a consumer culture that profits from your stress. But now you have the tools to step out of that game. You now know how to use Danshari to honestly curate your life, keeping only what serves the reality you are living right now. You know how to create Ma, that beautiful, intentional, empty space, to actively lower your daily cortisol and give your tired brain the room it needs to breathe. And you understand the biological trap of hedonic adaptation, which finally allows you to embrace Wabi Sabi and Chisoku, knowing in your bones that you already have enough. You are no longer trapped in the exhausting cycle of buying things to heal your stress, only to create more financial anxiety. You have the power to use your physical space to actually heal your mental space. But I know that when you are already dealing with decision fatigue and the heavy mental load of parenting or working, changing your life can feel overwhelming. So I am not going to ask you to pull everything out of your closet and throw it on your bed tonight. You are already tired, and that is simply too much friction. Instead, I want you to take one micro step. Tonight, just go to your closet and find exactly 3 items that you actively dislike. Just 3. Find the items that make you feel guilty when you look at them, the items that stress you out, or the ones that represent a fantasy life you are not actually living. Take those 3 items out and put them in a donation bag. That is it. Just 3 items. Tomorrow morning, I want you to stand in front of your closet and look at that tiny bit of new empty space. Feel that 10 seconds of Ma. Notice how your chest feels just a little bit lighter. If you are going to take this 3-item challenge tonight, please leave a comment below saying, "I am making space." I read every single one, and I want to celebrate that first step with you. And if this shift in perspective helped relieve a little bit of your heavy burden today, I would be so grateful if you subscribe to the channel. We will keep exploring these quiet, life-changing shifts together, building a community that chooses peace over pressure. Your peace of mind is worth far more than anything hanging in a store window. You already have enough.